My stepson walked in while I was changing and didn't leave. I should have said something. I should have pushed him away. Instead, I froze, and everything started unraveling from there. I'm Dana. I'm 42. I've been married to Greg for almost 9 years now, and if I'm being honest, I can't remember the last time he really looked at me. I don't mean the casual glance you give your wife while brushing your teeth or asking where your keys are. I mean looked like I was more than just the woman who paid half the mortgage and packed his cholesterol-friendly lunch every morning. We live in a quiet neighborhood outside of Austin, in a 2-story house with more silence than sound these days. Greg works in commercial real estate. Long hours, phone calls at dinner, emails at midnight. I used to ask about his day. Now I don't even bother. And me? I run a little online boutique, handmade jewelry, curated clothes, a few accessories I design myself. It's quiet work, alone work. Sometimes the only voices I hear all day come from podcasts or the dishwasher humming. But then, a few months ago, Greg's son, my stepson, moved in with us. Jake, 23, just finished college in Arizona and couldn't land a job right away, so Greg offered him the guest room while he figures things out. It was supposed to be temporary, but now it's been 12 weeks. At first, it felt like an intrusion. I'd gotten used to the quiet, the loneliness. But Jake filled the space. He played music when he cooked breakfast, laughed out loud at the dumbest shows, talked to me like I wasn't just Dad's wife. He noticed things, like when I cut my hair, or wore something new, or when I sighed a little too heavily while pouring my second glass of wine. He had this way of looking at me. Not inappropriate. Not at first. Just curious. Observant. Like he saw something Greg had long since forgotten. One afternoon, I was in the backyard watering my herb garden. Jake leaned in the patio doorway and said, "You look good in the sun." Just like that. No smirk. No joke. Then he walked off like he hadn't just left me standing there with my mouth slightly open and my knees just a little too shaky. I told myself he was just being kind. Just being young. That it was harmless. But something started shifting after that. It was little things. Jake would sit on the kitchen counter while I cooked, asking about my jewelry designs, telling me about his exes like I was some cool aunt, not the woman who shared a bed with his father. Once, he offered to help me move some boxes in the attic. We were up there for maybe 10 minutes before I had to take off my sweater. It was sweltering. He looked away, but not fast enough. I caught the flicker in his eyes before he turned. And then, there was that Saturday. Greg had gone golfing with his buddies, and I was upstairs folding laundry. I didn't hear Jake come in. I was mid-change, slipping into something more comfortable. I had just unclasped my bra when I heard the door creak. I turned, arms across my chest, and there he was. His eyes locked on mine. And here's the thing, he didn't panic. Didn't apologize or stumble backwards. He just froze. So did I. My heart was thudding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. My arms were still clutched to my chest, but it wasn't modesty that held me still. It was something else. Something heavier. He said my name. Softly. Like a question and a confession all in one. Dana. I should have yelled. Should have said, "Get out." But I didn't. And he didn't leave. Seconds passed like hours. Then finally, he turned, slowly, and stepped out, shutting the door behind him. I stood there for a full 5 minutes, unable to move. That night at dinner, Greg didn't notice anything. Not the silence. Not the glances Jake and I exchanged. Not how I jumped when his hand brushed mine reaching for the salt. But something had shifted. Irreversibly. 2 days later, I found a note in the laundry room. Slipped between a folded towel. "I'm sorry. I shouldn't have stayed." But I couldn't look away. No name. Just that. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was angry. Not even because I was afraid. Because deep down, I wasn't sorry he stayed either. The next morning, Greg left early for a client meeting. Jake was in the kitchen, already dressed, mug in hand. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me, lips slightly parted, eyes searching mine. I walked past him, heart hammering. But when he reached out and lightly brushed my wrist, I didn't pull away. Not immediately. Not until the kettle started screaming behind us. And even then, I swear I felt my whole body leaning in the wrong direction. The next morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror with a toothbrush hanging loosely from my mouth, trying to remember how it used to feel waking up without this pressure. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw him, Jake, standing in the doorway, his mouth parted, his eyes flickering across my skin like he wasn't sure if he was allowed to look, and doing it anyway. My robe hung loosely around me, and for some reason, that made me feel more exposed than if I'd worn nothing at all. I could still feel his touch from the day before, just a brush of his fingers along my wrist, but it stayed on me like a stain. Not painful, not wrong, just undeniable. I padded downstairs and found him already sitting at the table, flipping through his phone like nothing had happened. But when his eyes met mine, the air between us shifted. Again, he didn't smile. He didn't say good morning. Just one long, unreadable stare. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat across from him. He didn't look away. The silence was louder than Greg ever was. When I finally spoke, I wasn't even sure what I was trying to say. I don't think. I know, he interrupted. And then he said nothing else. Just went back to scrolling. Like we had an understanding now. Like the line had been drawn and erased in the same breath. I tried to put it behind me. I really did. I made dinner like usual. I sat through Greg's stories about some new client who wanted to flip an abandoned hotel in Waco. I nodded at all the right places, laughed when I was supposed to. But Jake, he watched me. Always. From the couch. From the hallway. From across the kitchen. And then, one night, it wasn't just glances. Greg had gone to Houston for a 2-day conference. Jake and I were alone. I told myself to stay upstairs, to go to bed early, to avoid anything that could even look like a temptation. But I didn't. I went downstairs. He was in the living room, lights dimmed, some old movie playing in the background. He didn't look surprised to see me, like he knew I'd come. I sat on the opposite end of the couch. Not close, but not far. For a while, we didn't say anything. Then he spoke. I know I crossed a line. I didn't respond. I wasn't going to, but then I saw you. That day. And I couldn't unsee it. My heart was thudding again, that same dangerous rhythm. You should be with someone who sees you, Dana. It wasn't a pickup line. It wasn't even flirtation. It was honesty. Raw, reckless honesty. I'm married to your father, I whispered. He nodded slowly. But are you with him? I don't know how long we sat there. But eventually, I turned off the TV and stood. As I walked past him, he reached out, just like he had before, and caught my hand. This time, he didn't let go. And I didn't pull away. He stood too, close enough for me to feel the heat between us. We shouldn't, I said. I know. But neither of us moved. And in that silence, we made a mistake. Not love. A mistake. One we didn't speak about. Not afterward. Not the next morning when Greg came home and Jake cheerfully helped him bring in his overnight bag like everything was fine. It wasn't. For 3 weeks, we danced around it. Avoided being alone in the same room. Kept everything buried under half smiles and silence. But guilt is a living thing. It grows in the dark. And I started noticing the changes. Greg became colder. Not distant, colder. Sharper. He started watching me more. Not in a loving way. In a way that felt like surveillance. Then one night, I was in the bathroom brushing my teeth, and I saw it, tucked behind the picture frame on the shelf, a tiny blinking red light. A camera. My blood ran cold. I tore through the house the moment Greg left for his usual Tuesday morning breakfast with his business partner. I found 3 more. One behind the TV. One in the hallway vent. One in the corner of the laundry room. He knew. Or at least he suspected. I didn't say anything to Jake. I didn't know what to say. We hadn't even acknowledged what happened beyond that one evening. And now it was all about to unravel. The confirmation came that night. Greg came home early. Said he wasn't hungry. Said he'd already eaten. I was washing dishes when he stepped behind me. Close. Too close. You know, I've been thinking, he said. His voice was calm, detached. I work so hard. And I come home, and sometimes I wonder what exactly I'm coming home to. I turned, my hands still wet, a dish towel draped over one arm. What do you mean? He smiled then, cold and full of something I didn't recognize in him. I mean, when a man watches his own house and sees his son watching his wife, well, it makes him start asking the kind of questions nobody wants answers to. I dropped the dish. It shattered against the floor. Greg didn't flinch. He stepped back, dusted off his jacket, and left the kitchen without another word. I stood there, barefoot among broken porcelain, wondering which part of my world had just cracked wider, my marriage or myself. He didn't bring it up again. He didn't need to. The cameras disappeared the next day, quietly, as if they were never there. Jake started packing the following weekend. Said he got a job offer in Denver. Greg didn't argue, just nodded. He didn't say goodbye to me. Jake, I mean, not a word. He left a note in my jewelry drawer. We crossed a line we couldn't uncross. But for a moment, you were the only real thing I'd ever touched. I sat with that note for hours. Greg never asked for a divorce. But 3 weeks later, he went on a guy's trip to Palm Springs and came back smelling like hotel soap and someone else's perfume. He left his ring on the nightstand. Didn't mention it. And I didn't ask. I still wear mine. Not because I want to, but because every time I take it off, I remember how easy it is to become someone you don't recognize. Someone who waits a second too long. Someone who doesn't say no fast enough. Someone who freezes when a door opens and doesn't close it fast enough. He left the ring. I left everything else.